Before you listen, if you like these stories and want to hear more, please take the time to subscribe. Most of you are not subscribed. Turn on your post notifications so you don't miss a video. Thank you, and now enjoy. This story took place when I was a younger boy. My mom and I lived in a small town that had really kind and nice people around. My dad was deceased after a bad car accident. My mom had to move on and find herself dating this guy she met in our small town at Walmart. The guy's name was Michael. He was tall and had long hair. Michael was also into video games, just like any younger boy would be. My mom and Michael dated for a few months before her and Michael decided it was best they part their ways due to their busy schedules. Michael would still come by though, even after the fact that my mom and him broke up. They were still close friends and would still help out each other. I figured maybe this was the best for them because Michael seemed like a chill guy and he treated my mom good. She was also more happy when they soon became friends. The reason for that, I don't know. My mom was going out of town for her work and she ordered a babysitter to watch me. Because Michael was at work, he said. The babysitter soon arrived and it was a tiny skinny female. She was nice but did not talk much, as you would think most babysitters would. This one was different, I guess. I remember I was upstairs playing the game when I got a text from Michael. He was saying, "Hey, do you think you can unlock the door for me? I have to grab my jacket I left over there." I already texted your mom, and she said that was fine. I didn't think nothing bad of it at the time because Michael was my mom's ex-boyfriend, and he would come over and watch movies with us. So I figured maybe he did forget his jacket. I kept playing the game when I heard a knock at the front door. The babysitter answered, and I could hear a male voice. It sounded like Michael. He was telling the babysitter that he was a close friend and how he dated my mom and he needed to come in and grab his jacket. The babysitter was hesitant and was not letting Michael come in. I could hear all this happening when I suddenly got a call from my mom and I answered and said, "Hey mom, this is off topic but Michael's here." My mom knew something was wrong and told me to find a place to hide and that she would call the police and for me not to come out for no reason at all. I then did what my mom said and I heard a loud scream downstairs. Michael then told our babysitter to shut up and tell me where the kid is, with a demanding, mean voice. The babysitter didn't say anything. That's when I heard a loud sound downstairs. It sounded like Michael dropped the female, and I could hear her head hitting the floor, arise throughout the house. I then heard footsteps coming upstairs and Michael's voice, "Hey bud, where are you?" He went from having a playful tone to a demand one real quick. "Kid, come out right now." I began to hear things getting thrown around and I was hiding under my parents' bed, trying not to make a sound, holding my teeth tight together, shut. I then saw Michael lean down and he saw me under the bed. He then grabbed me by my ankles and said, "You're coming with me." I began to try to fight back, screaming, but Michael was a bigger guy and dragged me out of the house. He then threw me into his car trunk and began to start to unlock his car door. I kept beating and hitting at the car trunk door, saying things like, "Let me out, help." I heard police sirens pulling into my driveway and told Michael to get on the ground. I kept screaming and the police told Michael to give him the key so he could unlock the trunk. Michael kept laying on the ground when the car trunk opened up. I then saw Michael get arrested and I was free. I looked at Michael with the most disappointment face you could ever have. Why, Michael? Just why? I wondered to myself. My mom then rushed home and talked to the police. When the police left, I remember asking my mom what was Michael's motives. She just said, "He wanted you so I could not have you." This was terrifying because what did Michael want with me? Why would he try and take me away from my own mother? Was it to make her unhappy and sad? The memory still stuck into my brain and I would never know why Michael began to start acting that way and what he was planning on doing to me. I live in a relatively small town. There's not much to do here. We only have a few things like one Walmart and a couple of gas stations. Most of the time I would spend my time at the town's Walmart or a local park that was not far from my house. There was some good out of living in a small town though. I mean, everyone knew each other. There was little to no crime, so it was like a peaceful community, which was like a family for me, I guess. I went to the park early in the morning because, as I said earlier, We don't have much, so the park was the only fun activity I could think of at the time. When I was walking to the park, I saw an older guy up the street. He looked as if he was walking the opposite way from me. I just looked at the guy and gave him a slight wave. That would be a good signal of a nice gesture, of saying hi. The man just looked at me and put his head down. I thought that was weird, but then I felt maybe the guy was new or something, and he was not used to random people just saying hi to him. I kept walking and hit a block. I then was at the park. It was right in front of me. The park was green, which was colorful, and it looked as a kid's dream. Myself, I am only 14, so I'm still considered to be a kid, I guess. I began to play at the park. I was alone and kinda used to this because living in a small town, there's not a big population as people you would see in a bigger city, like California. I would catch myself talking to myself and try to keep myself some company because I was alone at the park. After a couple hours went by, I remember leaving the park and my house was only 10 minutes away. I remember walking down the sunny street and would see nobody. The streets were empty. It was just me alone. I kept walking until I could see my house across the street. I then looked over beside me, maybe a couple feet away, the same guy looking at me as he sat on the bench. The guy looked as if he was in his 40s. I looked at the guy, but he would just stare at me, and then really stare at my house, which was across the street. You could see a big white house. That was the only one on the street, if I'm being honest. I then ignored this and crossed the street and went into my house. I then looked out the kitchen window and could see the man was still staring right at me. This was a bit creepy, and I told my mom. She told me that maybe the guy was lost and I had nothing to worry about. Besides, I was in the house after all. I remember my mom made me some lunch before she would ask if I wanted to run to Walmart with her. Despite how bored I was normally, I would go to Walmart, but I was a bit tired from the park. I told my mom that's okay and how I was gonna take a nap. Not long after, my mom then pulled out the driveway, and when I went back to the kitchen window, that man was gone. I was relieved that man was gone. A close call, I said. I then went to lay in my bed and take a power nap. Not even 15 minutes later, I could hear stuff coming from my attic. This was weird because I was sure I was home alone, and my mom would never go into the attic because of the spiders and the cobwebs that was up there. I then started to try and quietly walk past the attic. That's when the attic hatch opened up and a loud bang was then heard from the impact of the man. It was the same man I saw earlier. He was laying down in front of me. I tried to bolt past the man and my ankles were soon grabbed by the man. I tried kicking and yelling, but that did nothing. The man kept saying, "Stop it, I'm not letting you go." I then seen the man reach into his pocket and pull out a knife. I then kicked the man off of me with all the force I had and ran outside the door, screaming. The man then followed me and chased me with the knife in his hand. There was nobody around. I felt like I was in a murder movie and there was nobody around that could possibly save me. I kept running. Despite all the energy I had as a kid, the older man was still keeping up with me, yelling at me. It would only take a minute. I kept running fast as I could. I then got to the park, and for the first in ages, I felt like I could see a family with their kids. I told the man at the park I was being chased by a crazy guy, for someone to call the police. The parents who were at the park looked at me. The man then rushed at the guy who had a family holding a knife. This took them off guard because as soon as the creepy guy got a foot away before trying to slice the man's arm with the knife, the guy pulled out a gun and shot the creepy man in the shoulder. This made the guy drop the knife. Not long after, the police fled the scene and saw the older guy shot in the shoulder. We then explained to the police what all happened, but the guy with the gun was an undercover cop who was off duty because he was taking time off to spend time with his family. The man was sent to the hospital and then sent to jail afterwards. The man then confessed at court and said, "I just wanted to end someone's life for the first time. This trauma event really stuck with me, and for years, all I know is that that creepy guy was later on killed in jail due to him committing suicide after becoming depressed. After that incident, I moved out the small town I was living in and tried to find happiness somewhere else." Me and my family recently moved to a small town area. We figured it was time to start a new chapter in my life. The real reason was because my mom lost her job and she had to work a part-time job. The only thing we could afford with the little money we had was a crappy broke down small house in the middle of nowhere. When I saw the broke down white house, I was not a fan, but it was not my call to say where we lived at. I was a kid, so I was sad that my mom lost her job and we had to move away to a small town. The house was in the middle of nowhere. There was nobody around. The house was boarded up. I mean, I guess that's what you get when you make minimum wage, I thought. I was only a 12-year-old kid, so I've not worked a job, and that was the reason I said that smart remark I made earlier. But we didn't put our stuff in that house, and I asked my mom which room was mine. It was only 2 rooms. I asked my mom if I could get a curtain for my window. She agreed, whenever she got paid. The same night, I was about to fall asleep. I heard someone knocking at the front door. My mom was asleep and I did not want to wake her. I looked and could see an old man holding some papers. It looked like it was mail. I opened the door and the man said, "Here's your rent. These are the papers. It got delivered at my house. Is your mom awake?" My mom then rushed to the door and thanked the man and slammed the door shut and started to yell at me for answering the door. I guess I was kinda dumb. That wasn't the smart decision to do. The man then left. The next day, my mom was looking through the papers and it was not talking about the rent or anything. She began to start wondering, why did this guy deliver this mail paper? Because they were empty. This was strange because my mom said maybe he thought I was someone else, I guess. I thought the same thing. A few nights went by. Me and my mom would always watch movies and order pizza. I waited for the pizza to get there, and I heard a knock at the door. I looked and could see it was the pizza man. I answered and grabbed the pizza before shutting the door. Looking back at this story, I forgot to lock the door and did not realize this at the time. Me and my mom began to eat the pizza and watch movies until I got tired. My mom began to tell me to get ready for bed, and I did. She went to the living room and said, "Did you leave the door open? You got to shut the door." I knew for a fact I shut the door. And I said, "No, Mom, I shut the door." She began to lock it. I guess not believing me at the time. I started to question myself as well. I could have sworn I shut the door, but maybe I didn't, I guess. I began to get ready for bed and kept thinking about what my mom said. The front door was open. This kept going through my mind and I kept trying to brush it off. In the middle of the night, I began to close my eyes. That's when I could see my closet door opening. It was very slow opening. And right in front of me, it was pitch black darkness. I could see glowing eyes staring at me. I was terrified. I yelled for my mom, and the closet door then suddenly opened wide, fast. And I could see it was the man from earlier. My mom came into my bedroom holding a baseball bat and told the man to get out of my house or I will hurt you. My mom was tough, and I think the man realized this because instead of him trying to do anything stupid, the man ran out of my mom's house into the forest. My mom called the police and had the police do a search for the man. Not far from our house, the guy was in the forest setting up his own camp spot. When the police saw the man light his fire, he was soon arrested that night. He was sent to jail. My mom did decide it was best to get protection and to get more locks on the door, so we wouldn't have to experience this again. My mom saved me, and honestly, if my mom did not come in with the baseball bat and scare that man away, I don't think I would be able to live the life like I did. I am not 30 years old, and one of the most important rules around my house is the kids always know to lock the door and shut it, because you never know who's on the other side of the door.